Good evening, I think we're live. Return of the Waffle, how are we all doing? Christine, good evening. Sean, good evening. Anne, hi. We have 4 people on board. Was confused again. About what? Hi, Christine. Good afternoon. Okay, just give it 1 more minute for people to turn up. Hello, Wafflers. Hi, Kelly. Oh, did you try to join the Zoom meeting, Sean? Because I had a notification in my phone that someone's joined my meeting. Maybe it was you. Okay. I had some questions for the Waffle. Hi, Ron. Finally making something live. Welcome. No class tonight. This is just me chatting, so. So I have some questions that people have sent me. So we've got some question from Kelly, from Ed, from Eric, from Sean. One will just come through. Just give me a second. As we speak. Oh, another one from Ed. Okay, fine. Okay, Bob in reflection, yeah. So let's see what we got. All right. So I've had quite a few questions. Some of them are kind of sort of more personal about my personal preferences for martial arts. And so I just want to say that these kind of things are just, if I say about what works for me, it doesn't necessarily mean it will work for you guys. So my personal preference is, as far as your own martial arts goes, neither here nor there. But of course, it's nice to talk about that and to, you know, bond over that and share things. But it's more important you find the stuff that works for you through your practice. We're going to be different. So my Kung Fu is not exactly the same as my Sifu. So I'm different height, build, so on. So it's really important that you make your martial art your own. And before I go on to the questions, there was something came up on the academy where a member had sent me a picture of a posture and said, is it this or is it this? Which one's correct? And so you have to understand that some things are, how should I put it? Some things are right or wrong and some things aren't right or wrong. Some things are personal preference. So if I'm playing a piece of music and I play a bum note, if I play a note that's out of key, it's wrong. It's like, you sound, it's wrong, okay? So likewise, if a beginner's doing a form and it's wrong, the movement's wrong, or the stance is wrong, it's wrong, okay? So that's very clear. That's kind of pretty well objective, right? But when 3 musicians are playing the same piece of music, let's say they're playing the same notes, but one has a different feeling. Maybe he just holds a note a bit longer, or maybe he raises it slightly, or maybe he speeds up or puts some personal expression in, and that is now becoming a subjective thing. So it's very hard then to say right or wrong, okay? It's a personal preference thing. So it's important to know the difference. Otherwise, you can end up like a computer that's like exactly copying, like playing a piece of sheet music. When you hear a computer playing a piece of sheet music, it's kind of lifeless. It's perfect, but it's you wouldn't say it was high level, right? To some degree, the high level of Kung Fu is where you break the rules. Okay, but this is the problem. You have to know them before you can break them. So like, to give the music analogy, you maybe play with a metronome and everything's correct. Okay, you've got it. Now you can, that's usually the first couple of 100 reps of a form, just to get the muscle memory. by the time you've done it 10,000 times, you'd be doing it slightly different, or you should be doing it slightly different, right? So don't think in your head, the goal is to exactly like frame by frame my videos and copy me. That's really, I'm not interested in cloning an army. Like you see these videos on Facebook and YouTube, like 1,000 people doing their Kung Fu exactly the same time. What's that about? I mean, yeah, there's something else going on there, something slightly insidious. It's a bit like a, you know, Matrix, Agent Smith or something. So, okay. Josh, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. Long time no see. Oloy Mogin. Okay. So that's the first thing. So having said that, did I finish that story? Kelly, questions first. This is the email. Would like to know more about the training for Taiji in your Sifu school for beginners and more advanced students. Do young people start training Taiji much, or is it mainly older people? Do many students move from Taiji to Kung Fu or the other way around? That's the first question. Then your Taiji journey. How old were you when you started? Was it something your Sifu suggested? I remember you saying you weren't very good at first, so I'd be interested in how you developed. Okay, cool, good questions. Nowadays in China, unfortunately, because it goes through phases, it goes through fashions, but generally speaking, you have the kids that do the more of the Kung Fu stuff, the more external, lots of jumping and acrobatics. And then they get to a certain age and school takes over. They have to hit the books. They got no more time for training. It happens in the West, but it's more about they suddenly get interested in girlfriends or boyfriends and they disappear from training. And it's about the same age. But in China, it's because they have to study. So they take them out. Young people then are too busy making a living. So they come back to martial arts generally when they're retired. So there's very little in the middle at the moment. When I first went to China, it was totally different. It was all age groups. But the situation now is it's either little kids or retired people. And the little kids are all doing like the acrobatic Kung Fu forms, and the retired people are doing Taiji. You would never get going the other way around. So there's exceptions. For example, if someone has a limitation that they want to learn some maybe more physical form, but they have an injury or an illness, they would use Taiji therapeutically as a stepping stone. So that can happen, but it's not the norm. That's not usually the way it's done at my Sifu school. So the training for Taiji in your Sifu school, so first beginners and advanced. So when my Sifu had a school, he doesn't anymore, he's retired now, but when he had a school, let's say his father's school, for example, they would teach the 24 to the beginners. They didn't have the 8 form then, that's a more recent development. They would start everyone with the 24 form, then they would do the long form, and then they would do the 42 hand form, which is the combined form. That was the advanced form. So those were the 3 sets in the curriculum, as well as the sword, broadsword, etc. So that was usually what they did. And my Sifu's father was kind of unusual because after he taught people the Taiji curriculum, he then taught the Kung Fu forms to them, but he did them soft style. So what that meant was he could take any of the Kung Fu weapons or any of the hand forms. People thought, oh, that looks cool, I'd like to learn that. But he'd teach it, he wouldn't teach it in a very explosive, fast way. He'd just do it very gentle, called Minloi, jump, needle and cotton. So that way people would learn the Hapgar curriculum or the Hongar curriculum after the Taiji, but it wouldn't be taught in the same way. They wouldn't have the basics, the fundamentals, the hardening, the toughening. They would just do it for fun, for health, for relaxation. So depends what you want. It's good for your brain to learn more sets when you get older because it keeps the cognitive function, and also learning choreography and moving is really good for you. But for martial art training, you need a different kind of basis, different fundamental training. And people who are starting later in life probably wouldn't want to go through that, I would think. So that's how it used to be. Now my Sifu's not running a school anymore. He has his own sets that he teaches, his new Minloi Jam, or he calls Sangak Hapkun, the new frame of Hapkun, which is Taiji style, like a very soft form of Hapkun. So he doesn't differentiate Taiji Kung Fu. For him, it's not two different things at all. You have to understand that when you're teaching professionally, it's different because you say, right, I'm aiming at this demographic or I'm aiming at that demographic. But when you reach the really deep levels, there's the distinction disappears, it blurs, because you may be exploring a certain body method or movement. Sometimes you want to practice it soft or slow, sometimes hard or explosive, but it's the same stuff. So don't think they're two different styles per se. It's more of a training method that's different. So the next part of the question, my Tai Chi journey. How old were you when you started? 14, 15, when I started Chinese martial arts. I think the first one I learned the 24 forms, I was probably 16 or 17. And the first reason I learned it first was because I was told my shoulders were very tight when I was doing the Kung Fu. I needed to get more relaxation and whip. And I figured learning Tai Chi might help me to relax my shoulders. I remember you saying you weren't very good at first. No, I was stiff. I found it really hard to get the softness. I found that very challenging. I was quite strong. I'm sort of one of those people that's quite strong but's tense. So I could lift heavy weights and stuff, but I couldn't stretch, or some of the softness was eluding me for a long time. Did you become more interested in focusing as you get older? I'll tell you the story of that. Was that I remember saying to my Sifu that I felt I was probably about, when did I start teaching Tai Chi? I was maybe I remember. It was the year my kids were born. I was 28. And I was in China and I was training the Tai Chi with Sifu, and I was like, I'm not good at this, because my Hap Kun was better than my Tai Chi. And I was saying to my Sifu, just can't quite get this. And I said, I don't think I should teach. And my Sifu was like, yeah, you should teach. And I was like, well, you need to be older to teach Tai Chi. You need to, I've got a white beard now. So I was like, you need a white beard to teach Tai Chi. And Sifu was like, no, you've been training years, you've learned, your stuff's fine, you can help people, go and teach. And you will get better by teaching. And the more you do it, and the more you train, and the important thing is you keep training and keep working on it. So I remember when I first taught Tai Chi, I was kind of shy. I felt like I was a little bit too young to do it. That was my feeling. But within a few weeks, it was like really good. It had a lovely bunch of people, and there was good feedback. And then, of course, you see people progress, and then that's the real reward as a teacher, is when you see the students making progress. And then, as long as you keep honest. If you're not so advanced, you can only teach to a certain level, right? And then when the students get to that level, you say, right, go and learn with this teacher, or go and learn with that teacher. Which is what I've done in some aspects of my, for example, grappling or some of the mixed martial arts. I say, you want to concentrate on this area. This is a specialist. You should go and see this person. But of course, what happened was I ended up doing a lot in my 30s, a lot of Tai Chi. I mean, I really, really deeply went into it. So I found some good people to train with, and I kept improving. So I'd be hard pushed to say now which I prefer. Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next question. This is Ed's first question, was about whole body movement. I've been really trying to work on the feeling of whole body movement and hips leading the hands. I did answer this on the Academy page, but it's worth talking about a little bit. I was wondering if there are any moves you think are particularly helpful in practicing capturing that feeling. And again, I think it's not so. Oh, thanks, Kelly. I think it's not so much the movement as the practice method. Okay, so you've got the key words there. Is feeling, right? And when you're thinking about stuff you're not feeling, you have to continually come back to the sense of the movement, to the actual sensation or the energy or the feeling of the movement. And so one way around that, when you're doing a form, it's hard because you're thinking, what's the next move, unless it's a form like the back of your hand. So after you've done a form 10,000 times, then you can do that. But until that point, you're better off just doing a single movement. So say you're doing cloud hands, and what you're trying to do first of all is just pay attention to the feeling of the movement and not let the mind go off. So you're feeling when the wrist turns, when the hand moves, and you're trying to feel like as the hand moves through the air, you can even feel the air on the hand. And if there's any tension or stiffness, you're just dissolving it and releasing it, okay? Then you're talking about the waist leading the hand. So if that's the feeling you're trying to get, you can just do, say, cloud hands, and then just pay attention to how the waist leads. If at any point the hand's going away from the waist, then don't stop, just pay attention, reconnect it. And just gently reconnecting it. So you're forming that kind of, reinforcing that feeling, that sense. And then I would do a single movement for 5 to 10 minutes as that practice method. And then you're reinforcing the feeling. Then when you go back to the set, see if you can capture that feeling and keep it going through the whole set. I mean, in practice, that's very, very difficult. If you're doing the long form, which takes about 20 minutes, it's going to be pretty hard. You can't say the mind won't wander in 20 minutes. But that's okay. You know, that's okay. Just keep coming back. So yeah, wave hands like clouds. Grasp bird's tail is good as well, because you can just do the whole movement, then turn around, do it on the other side, then turn it back around again and do it on the other side. So you're just going left and right. Pang Lu Ti An. Hey KK, welcome. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing fine. So yeah, that's just that repeating those single movements is good. When you're doing, one advantage of Tai Chi, of course, over say the Hapkun, is that if you're practicing with speed and power, you will fatigue. So you can't keep the practice going because you need to rest, you need to recover. But by doing Tai Chi or Min Noi Jump, you can practice the movement, say for a long time without fatigue, which means you can more get into the actual sense of it. You can get into more of the feeling of it, which is the important thing. Yeah, great. Okay, hope that answers your question. Next one from Eric. Time is precious. He's trying to keep up with Wing Chun, Choi Li Fut, and Hop Gar. 3 styles, which is difficult, right? So I also practice 3 styles. How to stay proficient when you learn. How does one practice when they have a great deal of tools in the toolkit? And conditioning, second question. I have access to a wooden dummy. With practicing sets, hinge development. Understanding these tools are not just for conditioning. Teach about angles, flow, follow through, momentum. Is there a practicality working with these devices, or should training focus on forms and applications with a partner? Okay, so there's two different questions here. First one is this: to practice 3 styles is really difficult, and you may be better off just doing one. I think you may end up for your Kung Fu going deeper if you just pick one and go very, very deeply. But on the flip side of that, learning something else can give you a different perspective on the other one. So it gives you kind of a more of a kind of binocular vision. So you have a depth to it. So I can't say one's right, one's wrong. However, trying to practice like loads and loads and loads of sets is definitely not the way. There's a phase you go through. It's like when you do say you're doing your PhD and you're doing a research paper, and there's a phase where you're just trying to get data, as much stuff as you can, pulling it from everywhere, and you've got this big fat kind of file of stuff, okay? But when you hand in your dissertation, you want it to be small. You want it to contain all of this in this. So my answer to you, Eric, is that you need to contain all of the Hapkun in this. All of the Hong Kong, what is it you do? Wing Chun in this. All of the Choi Li Fut in this. So you've reduced the essence of it down, so you can practice the important things, the sense, the feeling, the principles of the art, rather than just, I've got to go through 10 Choi Li Fut forms, 10 Wing Chun forms, 10 Hong Gar forms. It's too much. It's too much volume. So you're going for depth. So almost like you're boiling it down, like in cookery, right? Where you're reducing it, but you're keeping the essence of it. That's the important thing. So then, of course, interesting things happen, that you start finding that the essences of martial arts, to some degree, are the same. They're just expressed differently. Choi Li Fut and Hop Gar. Yeah, there's another question from Ed on a similar topic, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is interesting. Wing Chun is slightly different conceptually, but I'm not going to speak about Wing Chun because I'm not an instructor level of Wing Chun. Okay, next question was the dummy, practicing on the dummy. Difference between practicing sets and teaching angles, flow, follow through, momentum. Is there a practicality working through these devices, or should training focus on forms, applications with a partner? I think think of it backwards, Eric. So what are you trying to do? If you know what you're trying to do, then you create the drill or the exercise to get that, right? People go the other way around. They learn all these moves. They go, what's the application? And I think that's backwards. It's like you're doing your kung fu. Let's say, for example, I'm giving a really, really crude example. You're doing your kung fu. Someone throws a punch. You block it, and you're, oh, my arm hurts. I think I need to condition that a bit. Okay, so you start hitting it lightly. You maybe hit it on the dummy, and you start practicing the movement. And then you start, okay, now I'm starting to get some feeling of that and the confidence, and my arm's getting tougher and so on. Then you wouldn't need to ask the question, because it's like you know what you're trying to get out of it. Okay. But angles is different. When you're working with a dummy, remember the dummy's dead, it's stuck, it's fixed in one position. So you're all the time having to move around it to kind of simulate the fight, to simulate the angle that you would use to move in. If you don't train live with an opponent, you can't transfer that feeling onto the dummy. And goodness, you don't want to do it the other way around. You don't want to fight a person like they were a dummy. That would be a terrible mistake. So you have to have the reference first. So I would suggest you're training live, then you have to come up with a problem. You know what the problem is, so now you know how to fix it. Use whatever tools are at your disposal. If it's a heavy bag, if it's a dummy, they're all going to have slightly different advantages and disadvantages. I have a heavy bag, a dummy, and a bot bag, and I'll train different things on each of them, because nothing is exactly the same as a real person. And of course, with COVID, there's not much sparring and real people fighting stuff going on. So teach one about angles, flow, follow through, and momentum. Yeah, and so, I mean, I know that some Wing Chun teachers really, really emphasize that, doing the dummy set kind of fairly softly. So again, giving body awareness and feeling how it all connects through and so on. That's kind of similar in Tai Chi, where we do posture testing, where the teacher will put pressure into your postures and you can feel and you can align. My Sifu, I asked him what a traditional Hap Kun dummy was, and he just said a tree. So you work with what you got. If there's a branch sticking out, okay, I can practice that movement, or I can practice this movement on it. It's about the right height for this movement, whatever. And so you adapt to it. My Sifu also used to use a post in the ground that was a little bit, he'd kind of dug through concrete and then put the pole in, and it was flexible, so he could push it and pull it and work his kind of core strength on different angles, and as well as the bumping and hitting and bridging and so on for conditioning. So he found that quite useful. That didn't have any arms, so it was just a post, and he rated that as a practice method. It's really personal. It's like what you make work as a result of. You don't say, well, oh, that looks cool, I want to learn that. It's more like, okay, this is the problem I'm having, how do I fix it? Okay, and the last question from Eric was about the history. So what I referred you to the blog. We have a blog on the website, risingcrown.co.uk, where I've got 3 articles of history: Hong Kong, Hap Kun, Tai Chi, and I did about an hour talk on each one, but I can't remember where they are. So if someone wants to dig through them, or if somebody knows and has bookmarked them, but there's a lot of stuff about that. You have to find it. Okay, next question. Sean, multi-questions here. He says, what's your favorite form and why? What's your favorite weapon and why? What's your favorite weapon to teach and why? And finally, do you teach stick forms? And when do you feel this is best suited for interested students? Okay. I know it's a cop-out, but I don't think I have a favorite form. The different forms are like, I don't know, like different ways of exploring certain principles. So sometimes I really, really enjoy doing the Hap Kun, like old school style, very fast and loose. Sometimes I really much prefer doing the Tai Chi and then the Hong Kong, because I like the bridging and the breathing and so on. They're all cool. I'm really hard pushed to say I have a favorite. Really hard pushed. What's your favorite weapon? Well, there I would say Hapgar sword, because it's kind of unique to our style, and I really like Hapgar sword. But I like the Tai Chi straight sword, so it's a close between those two. Do you teach stick forms and when? Yeah, see, the cool thing about stick forms, although I say I like sword, that is as into practice a form. The thing about a stick, though, is that it's practical in our today's day and age for self-defense. So you can pick something up and you can use it like a stick, or you can carry a walking stick, umbrella, this kind of stuff. You can't start chopping people about with a sword. So that's purely for cultural and purely for the art, and I enjoy the practice. But honestly, if I was attacked, even if I had a sword, I wouldn't want to chop somebody. I really, unless it was a life or death thing. But in the world we live in now, not really. So I would say from that point of view, from the practical point of view, sticks and a short stick is very, very useful. And we do a lot of we use like soft padded sticks. We put helmets on and we just go for it. And we do stick fighting from long range, in the clinch, on the ground, all different kind of scenarios and drills and disarming, and it's a lot of fun. So I really enjoy that kind of practice. Traditional Hapkun stick was called Wonglongguan, which is the yellow dragon stick. And the traditional Hongkun stick in our family was called Sapsamturnguan, which is a long pole. It's used like a spear. That's really cool. That was my Sifu's granddaddy's form, so I really like that form. I practiced that one a lot. And it's really good for your power as well, because it's like repeating his chopping and thrusting. It's not a showy form. It's not going to win, competitions or be in the movies. It's more like you thrust, block. It's very simple, but very, very practical, and it works very well. So I like that one. The yellow dragon is a little more showy. It's got some flowers and throws and spins, so that kind of looks a bit cooler. It tends to be practiced with a slightly shorter stick as well, the yellow dragon. When do you feel this is best suited? Well, it's not in the Taiji curriculum, because the Yang family, they don't seem to have a form for stick and spear. They have exercises. They'll shake them and practice thrusting with spears to learn the Fajing. So they have basic training, but not really set to the same degree that we have it in the southern styles. So I would teach those forms. If you're talking about traditionally, I would teach it in the Kung Fu curriculum after someone's got at least a couple of hand forms up to a good level and got good stance work, then we'd introduce sticks. If you're talking self-defense, it's different. You could start straight away, just pick up a stick. It's probably more practical to start with a stick, because your average person, it's difficult for them to defend themselves barehanded. If you're attacked by some young ruffian and you can pick a stick up, then it's a good thing. It gives you an equalizer, right? So again, everything depends what your reason for training is. Okay, next question. Last question, actually, another one from Ed. The relationship between Hapgar and Choi Fat. I saw a clip of some Choi Fat the other day. It looked very similar to Hapgar you've covered. Yeah, it's really similar. It's really similar. Why? So I can only say my own personal. Oh, you're welcome, Sean. I can only say my own personal, what I think after having researched this, like why are they so similar? And Choi Fat people may disagree with me, okay? Because I've read Choi Fat books that say different things, right? So this is just my idea, so nobody get upset. If you're a Choi Fat Sifu and you're watching this, don't start sending me threatening emails. But Choi Fat, Fat means Buddha. Fat Ga is Buddha, Buddhism, right? Buddhism. Choi Ga, Lei Ga, Fat Ga means the style had three lineages that come together. So that, in other words, the founder had learned from three different people, and then he named the style after his three teachers. The question is the Buddhism. What kind of Buddhism is it? So we had the Hengwanji in the Hapkun, which is the temple where Wang Anlam studied. Now, my personal belief is that that's where the Buddhists come from, because it's too damn similar. It's so similar. Gua, Kap, Lam, Bin, Pao, Cha, all the same seed techniques. So I think that it came from the same source as the Hapkun, plus some other styles. It has more kicking, I think, than we use. And so that's probably influenced it. They have a few differences. So, for example, when we do Chap Choi, which is our piercing punch, we tend to hit with the big knuckles. Choi Fat guys like to extend, and they call it the Panther Fist. So they hit with the extended knuckles. So they say that gives more reach and penetration to the punch. My Sifu was of the opinion that this was more sort of stable and hit harder. So again, I don't think it's right or wrong. It's what you have to train. If you want to hit with this style chap choi, you have to condition this. This has to be really tough. For most people, this would break your hand, so it takes some work. So there are differences, like yum yum chap choi and then sao choi, which is really similar to our lamb choi, gua cup. So I'd say that the seed techniques are the same. It's a bigger curriculum. So here's an interesting story. Again, I'm talking about another style, but the Hongsing, which is one of the schools of Chole Fat, has like about 100 sets. I mean, because it comes from 3 styles, and they got a ridiculous amount of sets. I got one book where it just lists all the sets, and there's hundreds of them. And you think, how the heck can you learn that many sets? And there's an interesting character who was known to my Sifu's father was friends with the Baksingwon, right? Baksingwon is a school of Chole Fat that split off from the original school by a guy called Tam Sam. And the story that I heard was that he said, all right, I'm going to go and teach, or I'm going to do my own thing, because he was like the best fighter and no one could beat him. And the school's like, you're not allowed to teach. You've not learned the whole curriculum. You've only learned 3 sets. And he's like, I only need 3 sets. And they're like, no, we don't give you permission to teach because you don't know the whole system. He's like, well, if anyone wants to fight me, nobody could beat him. So in other words, you don't need 100 sets. If the ones you've got, you're good enough at it. And by all accounts, he was extremely good. And he emphasized more the side body, pinsan, and the extended punches and this kind of thing. So his style, his branch became called Baksing Chole Fat, which I believe means Northern Star, but I may be wrong. It sounds like the Cantonese for Northern Star, but Chole Fat. So there's some connection. My Sifu's, it's an interesting thing that one of the masters in Guangzhou, he was leaving the country. I don't know if it was the time of the Cultural Revolution. I can't recall. My Sifu's told me so many stories I can't recall. But I think it might have been the time of the Cultural Revolution. He was going to be away for a year. So he sent his son to my Sifu's father, Dang Gampo, to learn. And he learned Hopkun. And a lot of the Chole Fat guys were kind of put out, and they went, wait a minute, why did you send him to a Hopkun master? You know, you were going away, and why did you send him to Master Dang? And he said, because Master Dang is a man of very high moral character, and I trust him with my son. And then, in other words, in his mind, the morality was more important than the style. And I think that's a great story. I think that's perfect. Yeah. So it's not just the style, it's the person, right? So yeah, very similar styles. Same area, both come from the same town. Probably, in my opinion, the same monastery was the source of those techniques, hence the similarity. So in the southern style, they often get grouped together and they get called the southern long arm styles. So you've got the short, like Wing Chun, Pak Mei, was a very short, explosive, compressed movement. Then you've got Hapkun Chole Fat that use movements which you tend to think of as more northern because they're more extended, but they are distinctly Cantonese styles. Right, I think I've answered all your questions. So anything else you want to know, just tell. We've got 10 more minutes, so I should do these every now and again if I get some juicy questions. So keep sending me questions, and I'll rather than me setting a waffle and then asking for questions, I'll wait, and when I get questions, I'll do a waffle. But remember, for those of you in the academy, any questions about your training, post them in the community page, and I'm always going to answer them. If you want me to do a video, or if you want me to correct your video, that's what I do. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, I think so. Sean. Otherwise, sometimes I'm like, haven't had any questions this week. You remember the times, although it's worked pretty well a couple of times where I sat there and go, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, and then somebody says something and it sparks something off and we end up with a good discussion. But I don't know. Thank you. You're very, very kind, Christine. I appreciate that. Does anyone have any other questions before we check out? Oh, thank you. You're too kind. Yeah, thank you. Shucks, I'm not good at taking compliments, so thank you. crowdsourcing does work. Yeah, the wisdom of crowds, I guess. But I'm just passing on the stuff I learned. So happy to share. So it seems most of the people who are on this waffle, all of the people who are commenting are members of the academy, which is interesting, or seems to be almost all of you. So do take more advantage of the academy stuff and post me not just about my stuff, about your stuff. That's what I want to help. I don't want to stand here and say, hey, I got this form, I got that, I can do this, I can do that. I want to see your stuff and I want to help you. I want to see you guys going, okay, I've been working on this movement, this isn't quite there, and then I can help and I can say, right, try this, try that, and then you upload it again. I'm going, bang, bingo, well done. That's honestly, that's my reward. That's what I'm in it for. The Kung Fu has been really quiet with you guys are on the waffle, but the Kung Fu Zoom has been really quiet, and the Kung Fu videos and the questions have been really quiet. So throw some more at me. That makes me happy. So, okay. I guess that's it. I'm happy to say if I was getting any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but to work on the video side, view adjustment questions, no problem. What I would advise some of you guys to do is film a video, and then if I make a few corrections or suggestions, practice it, get it, and then re-upload it. And then what I do is I make a finer correction. So what happens is you end up getting it to a higher level, rather than just superficial corrections like, okay, you want to do it 45 degrees that way instead of that way. And it's not the same as I was talking about before, where I'm trying to make you exactly like me doing it. I don't mean that. I mean things like harmony of the body, like how you're connecting things, where the movement should go, how it should flow, the rhythm, and so on. That's really where you want to spend most of your time once you've learnt the set. Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah. Way behind in the classes. Hope to get. Yeah, don't worry, Josh. KK. There's nothing about catching up. I'm really happy. Even if people upload the first form or the first section, this is the thing. To me, it's all the same. It's like you can do one, you can do all of them, so it's okay. I was doing Qigong, my oncologist's office yesterday. Very helpful for routing. Well, I'm glad it's helpful for you, and I wish you all the best. So I guess that's it for tonight. Return of the Waffle. And see some of you guys next Thursday on the Zoom lesson. Thank you. And just keep sending me questions. And we've got next week, we'll do another nugget for the Kung Fu and Tai Chi. I'll probably keep those going weekly for a bit, for a while longer. And then we'll see from there how that goes. I want to do a new intake for the academy, and of course the nugget doesn't go beyond the 8 form for the Tai Chi or beyond the basic for the Hapkun. So I want to push people through to the next level. So that means another academy intake, probably New Year. I'm going to be going to visit my Kung Fu sister in France next month, and so I may do a video from her school or a nugget from her school. She's awesome, Tai Chi, Hapgar. She's really, really good. She was a coach when I first went to China. She was one of the coaches in the school, so she's ahead of me. And she has a school in Limoges in France. So hapkun.fr, I think it's hapquan.fr. If any of you guys want to check out her school, let me find it for you. I'll just there we go. Any of you guys want to check her out? She is my elder sister. Her biological sister is my Simo, my Sifu's wife. And she also studied with Dang Gamto when she was a little kid. So, yeah, maybe so. We'll see how we go. I'm being a little bit selfish because I really want to work on some of the stuff, some of my Sifu stuff with her. We train together, and it's a chance for me to work on some stuff that I haven't done for a while. So so that when I go and see my Sifu, as soon as travel's allowed, then I'll be as prepared as I can be. I've been working on my Chinese, my Cantonese, just ready to go back. So okay, that's it. It's time. So thank you everybody again, and I'll see you all. Thank you. Cheers, KK. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. Have a good one.